I never imagined that calling an AC repairman during a 115-degree heat wave would unravel everything I thought I knew about my family. At first, it was just a broken air conditioner, but what was hidden inside that system led to something far darker, something sealed behind a locked attic door for years. When the repairman looked at me and said, "Sir, this isn't just a malfunction. Someone did this on purpose," my blood ran cold. Let me tell you how a faulty AC, a message from a stranger, and 5 heavy padlocks shattered my reality and revealed the monster sleeping just steps away from me. Hey there, we're so glad you're here. Before we dive in, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and letting us know your location in the comments. It helps us grow this community. Important note, this account features fictionalized aspects intended for entertainment and educational exploration. Any resemblance to actual individuals or settings is unintentional, yet the underlying message carries significant value worth reflecting on. My name is Robert Mitchell, and for 68 years I thought I understood the people closest to me. I believed I could read my wife's smile, sense my children's needs, and trust the man who called me Dad, even though he married into the family. I was wrong about all of it. This story begins in the spring of 2019, though I didn't know it then. My wife Linda and I had just celebrated our 40th anniversary. We'd spent 4 decades building a quiet life together in Phoenix, raising 2 kids, watching them grow, saving for retirement. I'd worked as an insurance executive for 30 years, and Linda taught elementary school until her knees gave out. We had the kind of marriage people call comfortable, which is another way of saying we knew each other's rhythms so well we didn't need to speak to understand. That spring, Linda started complaining about headaches. At first, she brushed them off as stress rubbing her temples while we watched the evening news. Then came the fatigue. She'd collapse on the couch after grocery shopping, too exhausted to put away the milk. I urged her to see a doctor. She went through blood work scans, even a neurologist visit. Everything came back normal. The doctors chalked it up to aging, maybe early hypertension. They prescribed rest and a low-sodium diet. Around that same time, our air conditioning broke. In Scottsdale, Arizona, where summer temperatures climb past 115 degrees, a broken AC isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. I called a technician who discovered a refrigerant leak. My son-in-law Dylan, who'd married our daughter Jessica the year before, insisted on handling the repair himself. "I'm an HVAC engineer," he reminded me with a grin. "Save yourself a few $100. I didn't argue. Linda's condition worsened over the following months. The headaches became relentless. She grew dizzy, nauseous. Some mornings she'd wake up confused, asking me what day it was. I begged her to see doctors again, but she waved me off. "I'm just tired, Robert. We're getting old." In November 2019, I woke up to find her lying still beside me. She'd passed away in her sleep. The medical examiner ruled it heart failure. I was devastated, but didn't question it. Linda had been tired for so long. I thought her heart had simply given out. Jessica and Dylan were incredible during that time. They organized the memorial service, fielded calls from relatives, helped me sort through Linda's belongings. Dylan cooked meals for me, drove me to appointments when grief made it hard to function. Jessica would sit with me in the evenings, holding my hand while I cried. I don't know how I would have survived without them. Our son Marcus was harder to reach. He'd moved to Alaska years earlier to work on an offshore oil rig, dangerous, high-paying labor that kept him away for months. He made it home for Linda's service, stayed a week, then flew back north. I could see the grief in his eyes, but he never talked about feelings. That was the last time I saw him in person. By early 2020, I was living alone in the house Linda and I had shared for 3 decades. Every room reminded me of her. The silence was unbearable. In May, Jessica suggested I move in with her Dylan and their daughter Emma. "You shouldn't be alone right now, Dad. We've got plenty of space. Dylan just finished renovating the guest room downstairs. Emma would love having her grandpa around." I hesitated. I didn't want to be a burden, but the truth was I was desperately lonely. I agreed. Their Scottsdale home was a sprawling ranch-style house with a red tile roof and desert landscaping. Emma, who was 6, was a bright, giggly girl who loved showing me her drawings and asking me to read bedtime stories. Dylan treated me with respect and kindness, making sure I had everything I needed. Jessica doted on me, cooking my favorite meals, checking in constantly. For the first time since Linda's passing, I felt a flicker of peace. Then 2 months after I moved in, Jessica called me into the living room. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. "Dad," she said, her voice breaking. "I just got a call from Marcus's supervisor. There was an accident on the rig. An explosion. They couldn't find him." I felt the floor drop out from under me. Dylan pulled up news articles on his laptop, headlines about the disaster. 7 workers lost. No remains recovered. I stared at the screen, numb. My son was gone. Dylan sent me link after link, news outlets, official statements, even a GoFundMe page for victims' families. I didn't question any of it. Why would I? Marcus worked one of the most dangerous jobs in the country. Accidents happened. Jessica and I planned a memorial service without a casket. We buried an empty box beside Linda's grave. I remember standing there staring at the 2 headstones side by side, thinking I'd lost everyone I loved most. The years that followed blurred together. I fell into a quiet routine, helping Emma get ready for school, spending afternoons reading or watching old movies, having dinner with the family each evening. Dylan continued to be attentive, always asking if I needed anything. Jessica's love was unwavering, but sometimes late at night, I'd hear strange sounds from above my room. Scratching. Footsteps. Once a low thud that made me sit up in bed. I mentioned it to Jessica the next morning. "Oh, that's just the attic," she said, laughing. "We've got mice up there. Dylan's been meaning to set traps." Another time I heard what sounded like water running through old pipes. Dylan assured me it was just the plumbing settling. "This house is almost 20 years old, Robert. Things creak." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? I never went up to the attic myself. The pull-down ladder was steep, almost vertical, and Dylan had warned me it wasn't safe for someone my age. "Last thing we need is you taking a fall, Dad," he'd say with a smile. So I stayed downstairs, content in my little corner of their home, never questioning the sounds above my head, never suspecting that the man who called me Dad had already taken everything from me and was planning to take even more. The heat woke me before the sun did. I opened my eyes to a room that felt like an oven. Sweat soaked my pillow. The digital clock glowed faintly, but the house was eerily silent. No hum from the air conditioning, no cool breeze from the vent, just thick, suffocating stillness. I sat up slowly, my shirt damp against my skin. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten, but the temperature had already climbed past 100 degrees. I shuffled to the thermostat in the hallway and tapped the screen. 89 degrees inside. The system wasn't running. I pressed buttons, toggled settings, tried restarting it. Nothing. The unit was completely unresponsive. My first instinct was to call Dylan. He'd know what to do. I dialed his number. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I remembered then he'd left for Houston the day before for some big work project. His phone must have died overnight. Jessica was gone too, visiting her mother in Tucson with Emma. They weren't due back until late afternoon. I was alone in a house that was quickly turning into a furnace. By the time the sun fully rose, the temperature inside had reached 94 degrees. I'd opened every window, set up fans, even filled a bucket with ice water to soak my feet in. None of it made a difference. Without air conditioning, the house would become uninhabitable within hours. I had no choice. I needed to call a repair company. I found a local HVAC service online with good reviews and a 24-hour emergency line. The dispatcher assured me someone would arrive within the hour. I hung up, feeling a small flicker of relief. Ryan Brennan arrived 45 minutes later in a white van with the company logo painted on the side. He was younger than I expected, maybe late 20s, with sandy brown hair and a tool belt slung low on his hips. He shook my hand firmly. "8 years in the trade," he said. I've seen just about every AC problem you can imagine." I liked him immediately. There was something reassuring about his confidence. He started outside, crouching beside the condenser unit in the backyard. After 15 minutes, he stood and wiped his forehead. "Compressor's fine. No refrigerant leak, no electrical issues. Whatever's wrong, it's not out here." He walked back inside, glancing up at the ceiling. "Your air handler, it's in the attic, right?" I nodded. He grabbed his tool bag, flashlight, and a small handheld device. "Gas detector," he explained. "Standard safety equipment." He pointed toward the hallway where the pull-down attic stairs were located. "Mind if I head up?" I hesitated. Dylan's voice echoed in my mind. How many times had he told me the attic was off-limits? "It's a mess up there. That ladder's too steep for you, Robert. Last thing I need is you hurting yourself." But standing in a house that felt like it might melt around me, Dylan's warnings seemed less important than the unbearable heat. "Go ahead," I said. "Do whatever you need to do." Ryan pulled the cord, and the attic stairs unfolded with a metallic groan. He tested the first step, then climbed up, his tool bag slung over one shoulder. I heard his footsteps above me, muffled and uneven. Then after a moment, silence. I stood at the base of the stairs, staring up into the dark opening. Minutes passed. 5. 10. I started to feel uneasy. What could be taking so long? I considered calling up to him, but stopped myself. Maybe the issue was more complicated than he'd anticipated. 15 minutes had nearly passed when my phone vibrated. A text message. From Ryan. I opened it, expecting an update. But the words on the screen made my blood run cold. "Sir, there's a locked door up here, and my gas detector is going off. You need to come see this." I stared at the message, reading it twice. A locked door. In the attic, Dylan had never mentioned a door. He'd told me the attic was just storage boxes, old furniture, HVAC equipment. Nothing about a room, nothing about a lock. And the gas detector. Why would there be gas in the attic? My hands began to shake. I typed back, "What do you mean, a locked door?" The response came immediately. "You need to see this yourself. Please come up." I looked at the narrow ladder, the steep angle. My knees ached just thinking about the climb. But Ryan's message sounded urgent. I took a breath, gripped the sides of the ladder, and started up. July 15th, 2023, 10:47 a.m. The timestamp on Ryan's phone read when he sent me that message. I climbed the attic stairs, and the air hit me first, hot, stale, and oddly metallic. The space was smaller than I'd imagined, the ceiling low, and sloped, illuminated only by Ryan's flashlight. He was standing near the far wall, the gas detector in his hand, emitting a steady, high-pitched beep. When he heard me reach the top, he turned. His face was pale. "Mr. Mitchell," he said quietly, "I need you to tell me what this is." He stepped aside, and I saw it. Behind a stack of cardboard boxes and an old metal shelf hidden from view was a door. A real door with a handle and a frame. And across the front of it, securing it shut, were 5 heavy-duty padlocks. The kind you'd use on a storage unit. The kind meant to keep something or someone locked inside. I felt the floor beneath me tilt. My vision blurred. I reached out and grabbed the nearest beam to steady myself. I don't know," I stammered. "I've never been up here." Dylan said. Ryan interrupted me, his voice calm but tense. "Sir, my detector is picking up carbon monoxide. High levels. Whatever's behind this door, it's not safe." He pointed toward the air handler nearby. "And look at this." I followed his gaze. The metal casing had been tampered with. Fresh scratches marked the seams, and one panel was slightly askew. Ryan knelt and pried it open with a screwdriver. Inside, I could see wires, coils, and ductwork. But what caught my eye was a series of small, deliberate holes drilled into the heat exchanger, the part responsible for warming air in winter. They weren't accidental. They were precise, intentional. "This isn't a malfunction," Ryan said, his voice tight. "Someone sabotaged this. These holes let carbon monoxide leak into your ductwork." He stood and pointed toward the locked door. "And based on the dampers I'm seeing, it looks like most of that gas is being funneled into two places, your bedroom downstairs, and whatever's behind that door." I couldn't speak. My mind was racing. Dylan had worked on this system. Dylan had been up here countless times. Dylan had told me the attic was dangerous. Ryan moved closer to the door and pressed his ear against it. After a moment, he looked back at me, his expression grim. "Mr. Mitchell," he said softly, "there's someone breathing in there." I couldn't move. My legs felt bolted to the attic floor. Ryan's words echoed in my head, someone breathing in there, but my mind refused to accept it. A locked room, in the attic, with 5 industrial padlocks securing the door, and someone inside. Ryan glanced at me, his expression somewhere between concern and urgency. "Mr. Mitchell, do you know who might be in there?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat had gone dry. I shook my head slowly. Dylan had never mentioned a room. Jessica had never said anything. For 3 years, I'd lived beneath this attic, heard strange noises, and dismissed them because I'd been told it was nothing. But this wasn't nothing. This was deliberate. This was hidden. Ryan turned back to the door, running his hand along the frame. The wood was newer than the rest of the attic cleaner, less dusty. It had been installed recently, maybe within the past few years. The padlocks hung heavy on their brackets, each one a different brand, as if whoever put them there had gone out of their way to make the door impossible to open quickly. I stepped closer, my pulse hammering in my ears. The metal shelf that had been blocking the entrance had fresh scrape marks on the floor, as if it had been moved and repositioned regularly. The door itself was plain, no window, no peephole, just smooth plywood, painted the same dull beige as the attic walls. If Ryan hadn't moved that shelf, I never would have known it existed. He knelt beside the air handler again, pointing to the damage he'd found earlier. "See these holes?" he said, his voice low and controlled. "This is the heat exchanger. When the furnace runs, it burns natural gas to heat the air. But someone drilled through it, deliberately. That means every time the system runs, carbon monoxide leaks into your ductwork." I stared at the punctured metal, my stomach twisting. "But it's summer. We're not using the heater." Ryan nodded grimly. "Right. But someone's been running it anyway. Look here." He pointed to the thermostat controls on the side of the unit. "The furnace has been manually activated. It's been cycling on and off for weeks, maybe months. And with these dampers, the CO isn't going to every room. It's being directed. 2 places, specifically downstairs to your bedroom, and through this duct into whatever's on the other side of this door." I felt the floor shift beneath me. My bedroom, the headaches I'd been having, the dizziness, the fatigue I'd chalked up to age. It wasn't age. It was poison. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ryan checked his detector again. "Based on the wear on these drill holes and the soot buildup, I'd say 2, maybe 3 months. He looked at me seriously. "Mr. Mitchell, this isn't an accident. This is attempted harm. And whoever's behind that door has been exposed to the same thing. Probably longer." I reached out and braced myself against the nearest beam. Dylan. It had to be Dylan. He was the only one who worked on the HVAC system. He was the only one who came up here. But why, and who was in that room? Ryan approached the door and knocked once firmly. Hello, can you hear me? His voice was calm, professional. No answer. He knocked again, louder. If you can hear me, make a sound. Tap on the door. Anything. Still nothing. I stepped forward, my hands trembling. Let me try. I moved beside Ryan and pressed my ear against the wood. At first, all I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat, but then faint and uneven, I caught it, a rasping, labored sound. Breathing. Slow. Shallow. Desperate. There, I whispered. Do you hear that? Ryan leaned in and nodded after a moment. Yeah, someone's in there, and they're in bad shape. Panic surged through me. I pulled back and raised my voice. Hello, can you hear me? If you're in there, say something. Silence. I tried again, louder, my voice cracking. Please, if you can hear me, let me know, we're going to help you. Nothing. Just that same faint, struggling breath. Ryan reached for his phone. I'm calling the authorities. We need to get this door open, and we need medical personnel on standby. Whoever's in there might not have much time. Wait, I said, my voice shaking. I pressed my hand flat against the door, feeling the rough wood beneath my palm. Please, I said, softer now. If you can hear me, just try. One word. Anything. For a long moment, there was nothing. Ryan had his phone halfway to his ear, ready to dial. The attic was so quiet I could hear the faint buzz of flies somewhere in the rafters, and then so soft I almost missed it, a voice. Weak, hoarse, barely human. Dad. The word hit me like a physical blow. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the doorframe to keep from collapsing. That voice. I knew that voice. I'd heard it 1,000 times, laughing at dinner, calling me from across the house, teasing his sister. But that was impossible. That voice belonged to someone who'd been gone for 3 years, someone I'd buried in an empty grave. Dad, is that you? My chest seized. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I pressed my forehead against the door, tears streaming down my face. Marcus, I choked out. Marcus, is that you? There was a pause, a cough. And then so faint I barely heard it. Yeah, it's me. The attic seemed to tilt. My vision blurred. Ryan was saying something beside me, but I couldn't process the words. All I could hear was my son's voice. My son, who I thought had been lost in an explosion 3 years ago. My son who I'd mourned, who I'd cried for, who I'd believed was gone forever. He was here. He'd been here the whole time, locked behind a door, breathing poison, barely alive, and I'd lived in the same house just 1 floor below, never knowing. My legs gave out. One moment I was standing, the next, I was on my knees, gripping the attic floor. The wood was rough under my palms, splinters digging into my skin, but I barely felt it. All I could hear was my son's voice, weak and broken, echoing in my head. Ryan grabbed my shoulder, steadying me. Mr. Mitchell, breathe. Just breathe. But I couldn't. Marcus was alive. My son, who I'd mourned and said goodbye to, was locked behind a door 15 feet away. And I'd been living here eating breakfast with the man who'd done this. Ryan's voice cut through the fog. We need to get help. Now. He was already pulling out his phone, but I held up a trembling hand. Wait, I managed. Let me call Dylan first. I pulled my phone from my pocket, nearly dropping it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock the screen, but I needed to hear Dylan's voice. I needed him to tell me this was a mistake. I dialed. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then voicemail. His voice calm and professional. You've reached Dylan Reeves. Leave a message and I'll get back to you. I hung up and called again. Same result. A 3rd time. Nothing. Ryan watched me, his face tight with concern. He's not answering. I shook my head, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. Dylan always answered, unless he already knew, unless he was avoiding this exact moment. Call your daughter," Ryan said quietly. "She needs to know what's happening." I scrolled to Jessica's name and pressed the button. She answered on the second ring. "Dad, what's wrong?" Her voice sounded normal, concerned but not panicked. I forced the words out. "Jessica Marcus is alive." Silence. 3 seconds of absolute suffocating silence. When she finally spoke, her voice was shaking. "Dad, what are you talking about? Marcus passed away 3 years ago." "No." The word burst out of me. "He's here, Jessica. He's locked in the attic. There's a door, 5 padlocks, and I heard his voice. He's been here this whole time." Another pause, then quieter, almost a whisper. That's not possible." Ryan found him the repair technician. "He found a door and a CO leak, and Marcus is in there." "Jessica, what has Dylan done?" I heard her breath catch. When she spoke again, her voice was different, tighter, panicked. "Dad, listen to me. Don't open that door. Do you hear me? Don't touch it." "What? I'm just wait. Wait for Dylan to get home. He'll explain. Don't do anything until he gets back." I stared at the locked door, at the 5 padlocks, at the duct pumping poison into the room where my son was barely breathing. "Are you serious right now? Jessica Marcus is dying in there. Dad, please." Her voice cracked, and I realized she was crying. But it wasn't shock or relief. It was fear. Raw, desperate fear. "Let Dylan handle this. He'll fix it. Just don't open the door. I'm coming home right now. I'll be there in 2 hours. Just wait for me." Something snapped inside me. "You knew." "What?" "Sure, you knew." I repeated, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "You knew Marcus was in there." "No, Dad, you've been lying to me for 3 years. You helped Dylan fake his death. You helped him lock Marcus in that room. You stood next to me at his memorial and cried, and you knew the whole time." "Dad, it's not like that." "Then what is it like, Jessica?" I was yelling now, my voice breaking. "Tell me." She was sobbing openly now, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Dad, I didn't want this. I didn't know it would go this far. Dylan said it was temporary, that we just needed time, that Marcus was trying to take everything from us. So you locked him in a room and poisoned him. I didn't know about the CO. I swear I didn't know. Dylan said he was just keeping him out of the way until we figured things out. But I didn't know about the poison, Dad, I swear." I didn't let her finish. I ended the call and threw the phone across the attic. My whole body was shaking. Jessica, my daughter. She'd known. For 3 years she'd known, and she'd said nothing. Ryan was still beside me, his expression grim. "Mr. Mitchell," he said carefully, "we need to call for help. Right now." I nodded. Ryan picked up my phone, checked it still worked, and handed it back. "Call 911. Tell them everything." My hands were still shaking as I dialed. The line rang once before a woman's voice answered. 911, what's your emergency?" I took a breath. "My name is Robert Mitchell. I'm at 472 East Larkspur Drive in Scottsdale. My son is locked in the attic of my daughter's house. He's been there for 3 years. There's a carbon monoxide leak, and he's in critical condition. We need police and paramedics immediately. Can you confirm the address, sir?" 472 East Larkspur Drive, Scottsdale, Arizona. "Is your son conscious?" "I don't know. I spoke to him through the door. He responded, but he sounded very weak." "Is the door locked?" "Yes. There are 5 padlocks on it. We can't get in without cutting them off. I'm dispatching officers and emergency medical services to your location right now. They'll be there within 10 minutes. Can you stay on the line?" "Yes." Ryan stepped closer, holding up his own phone. The screen was recording. "I've been documenting everything. The door, the CO